Yeah, that's a great point. And it kind of leads into my next question, which was around data. You mentioned it briefly, but like how, and maybe another question too, but like how important is data, like historical data, carrier capacity, ELD information, when you're kind of decide on what lanes to bid on or which ones maybe not to bid on?
Yeah, that's there's a lot of different, I think, ways we can go with that, but um, I'll take it from the broker side and then I'll take it from the shipper side, right? So for a broker, like I mentioned before, um, I don't think there's ever too much data. I'd rather have too much and be able to pull out what is needed than not have enough, and then basically have issues at come time of tender or award. It causes a ton of problems that just cost more time and money, right? So, on the broker side, or excuse me, on the shipper side, um, broad data sets, right? And what I mean by that is, hey, I have this 3-digit zip code or 3-digit zip code range, and I need you to give me a price to California. And here is the average miles. It's doable, right? And for some shippers or vendors, that's the best way to go about it based on how they operate, right? They may have broke it down into Southern Cal, Central Cal, and then Northern Cal, right? And that's fine. And you do have to make some assumptions and bake that in there. Um, and that's just how they operate, right? They may not know that, hey, this is a particular customer that we're delivering product to. They may say, okay, Northern Cal, we know we have whatever 120 different customers that we're going to deliver to. So we need a price to go there because their POs may not be as steady as maybe a CPG or food shipper, right?
Yeah.
Which makes all the sense in the world, but give some of that context, right? And it doesn't have to be paragraphs because, believe it or not, brokers don't read and people don't read stuff, right? They just look at it and say, okay, it's my best bet. So if you have a broad data set, like, such as a 3-digit zip code or a range, there's nothing wrong with that. But be able to provide some context of, give me volume. How often does it ship? Do you have previous lane data that you can share, right? Be able to give some context to the data that you're wanting your providers to quote, right?
Yeah.
So that's one thing on the shipper side. Another thing is, as a new participant in an RFP, oftentimes what can happen is you're just there as a vehicle or leverage to get incumbent pricing down, right? And what that does, in my opinion, is it can push new incumbents away. And don't get me wrong, the market it's it can be tight for especially for brokers trying to get their foot in the door. And generally, what happens is brokers will use the one thing they can, um, and that's pricing. And they'll give lower pricing to get their foot in the door. And that's the wrong way to do it, and it sets both parties up for failures. So with new incumbents, don't just use them. And this is not every shipper, don't get me wrong, but for new incumbents, don't just use them as leverage for not new incumbents, new providers or brokers. Don't just use them as leverage for incumbents to get their pricing down, because you're not giving them a chance to basically show their worth and provide service. And I get it, you can't let every new broker or carrier, for that matter, into your network. But if you do choose to let them be a part of the RFP, make sure that they're at least getting feedback if they didn't win something, right? Just because you're new doesn't mean you win. That's not the case. um, but don't use newcomers or new vendors, brokers, what have you, as leverage for your incumbents. It's not fair. It's a waste of time. If you don't want them in there, don't invite them. It's just that simple,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
um, Another thing that comes to mind, speaking of feedback, is percentage based feedback, right? Oftentimes it's, hey, you're 10% or lower, you're in the 10 to 25, or you're 25% or higher. Okay, well, percentage of what, right? A, tell me what that is a percentage of. Is that the lowest bid? Or is that your target rate? And furthermore, if it is, are you going to select that carrier? Is this purely based on price? Has incumbency taken in effect? Do you guys, is it a regional model and you're looking at where carriers or brokers are domiciled? What is it, right? Because
Hmm.
basically all that does is push price down, and then the ancillary effects usually come after, maybe not right away, but brokers or carriers for that matter are only going to sustain losses for so long, right? And if you're
Right.
losing and losing and losing or keep rejecting tenders, that does no one any good, right? So percentage based feedback, in my opinion, is, lack of better words, garbage.
Hmm.
It gives a good idea, but it's not pointed enough to get to the end goal of here's the best provider with the best rate that can provide and execute on what they bid. It does, in my opinion, does not do that.
Right.
And then I guess kind of tertiary to what I was mentioning is awards based on performance versus price, right? So that would mean you're an incumbent.
Yeah.
And yes, I do think incumbents should take preference,
Yeah.
but don't invite every Tom, Dick, and Sally to your RFP. If you're an incumbent, okay, you got invited because you're within our cost parameters and you've performed on it, right? Why get rid of them? And furthermore, if you have a group of those folks and you got tons of people knocking on your door, just tell them no, right? Now that might be counterintuitive of saying, oh, okay, well, incumbents versus newcomers, if you have a group of folks that is executing at what you have awarded at the price and the rate that you've awarded, I don't see a reason why you invite new folks. If you're
Mm.
inviting new folks and new vendors to come on board just so you can push your incumbents down, you're doing it wrong and you're going to set yourself up for failure. Might not feel like that way over the last 2 or 3 years because the prices are so low, they can use
Mhm.
that leverage. That will turn, and your contracted freight will then hit the spot market, and that
Mhm.
will drive your rates up. So, pricing based, awards based on execution and performance versus pure pricing. And the last thing is, for the love of God, 2 rounds or less, please.
Mm.
You get 2 weeks, you usually get a month on the shipper side, right? It takes time. I'll speak
Yeah.
for myself and probably a good amount of other, solid brokers. It takes time to do this. It takes capital, right? We want
Yeah.
your business, but we also want to be able to perform on your business. Give us, 2 rounds or less and give us time to do the RFP. I'm not saying we need a month, right? Business doesn't stop. But at the same time, there needs to be time to be able to analyze the data, understand what it is we're bidding, and provide the best possible price on your lanes. And then, okay, round two, cut it in half, cut it down to 75%. Here's where you stand. We want to give you the freight. You're up against X amount of folks. Give us your best price. And then there you go.
Yeah.
That's my
Yeah.
that's my thoughts on things that could change in the RFP process.
Got it.